and somebody told me.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, genius economist, venture capitalist, and political analyst and strategist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical, political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the recent Supreme Court decisions is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's great to be back with you. It must be Wednesday, 6:30, because that's when we appear every week to do this podcast. And you all, my partners in this process called the podcast, are so valuable to me, so precious, so appreciated, and so beloved, because you more than any, it's like I always say, teachers often learn more from their students than the other way around. You learn a lot from your teachers, from your students, as they ask questions and open your mind to new ways of thinking. You do the same for me by your criticisms, by your both constructive and ones that sometimes hurt me, but have me open up my mind to appreciate other points of view that I never did before. You presented in a different light. So I want to thank you all for being the cohorts, the cohorts in this valiant effort that we make every week. I say it's a valiant effort because it's in the process of dealing with the week's events. I keep telling you I have to apologize because the events that make the headlines are all likely to depress us. When you read the headlines in the New York Times or any of the media outlets, the Washington Post, the New York Post, almost any news message, it's always, the headlines are always who got slaughtered this week, last night, 2 nights ago, 3 nights ago, two firemen were killed by some clearly perverse human being who started the fire, so the firemen would have to come to the location where the fire was, and then shot 3 of them. 2 of them were killed instantly, and 1 is in serious condition in the hospital. I think they said he's now sort of at the point where he will be saved. So but that's a daily event. I mean, it would be something if it was something that occurred once in a year, twice in a year. But these slaughters, these events occur more than once every day of the year, more than 365 times a year. Only in America. And I mean that. There's no other country in the world that has so many internal tragedies in a sense, tragedies uh, implemented. Implemented is the wrong word. Um, Initiated by its own citizens, by its own uh, inhabitants. It's 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 really a very depressing comment about the nature of our country. I love that statement every time some major tragic event occurs in this country by citizens or inhabitants of the country. Politicians and others say, this is not America. What do you mean it's not America? It's America that's doing it. We don't want to take credit for it. What is it, New Zealand that's doing it? It is America, and that's tragic. But anyway, I say all this by way of introduction to say that I have to apologize because the nature of what we deliver in this podcast, since it deals with all the current events that make the headlines, is inevitably uh, bound to depress any sort of normal, sane, balanced human being. You know, it's very discouraging. You know, it doesn't change. No matter what laws we pass, no matter what legislation we pass, no matter what we do with gun control, although that's very little, whatever we do with it,
Well, look
getting
here.
involved in the wars and so forth.
People would say, well, it's mental illness, right? The guy who ambushed the
Yeah,
firefighters, clearly mental illness.
right.
Who else would lure start a brush fire,
Right.
and then lure firemen in there so that you can shoot them? That's clearly mental illness, right?
Yeah.
So we need to attack mental illness. Of course, if he didn't have a gun, maybe he wouldn't have been able to shoot the guys,
right.
but we won't really address that.
So this country is more mentally than every other country in the world. Said commentary.
Some may say yes.
Well, I would say yes, because there's no other country that tolerates this.
Yeah, in that regard,
We have more of those events than any other country in the world. Australia, I'm always eager to point out, had an event in 95, a mass shooting, 1995. They passed all kind of laws. No sale of arms, military equipment, guns. None of that after that event was allowed. They made you could own a gun if you went through a really challenging process, overlooked for a year by the police department, and were at the end of the year approved. In the process, you had to learn to store a gun away from your kids or from being around loaded. You had to take lessons on how to shoot, because even police in the United States, they're trained, don't hit their target when they shoot for the chest or the heart or something. They're lucky if they hit the legs or the shoulder. So they want to prepare you, if you can own a gun, to handle it correctly and not jeopardize other people. And certainly they don't have availability of of weapons, of guns and assault weapons that can shoot multiple bullets within a minute. They have the capacity to kill that are made for war, so you can kill the so-called enemy. Not so-called enemy, the enemy. But sadly, I always call it so-called enemy because we send innocent young men and women that we draft or that we solicit to join us armed forces as a patriotic duty, and they're out. We teach them how to kill as fast as they can, as many people as they can, all at the age of overall between maybe 17 and 27. Uh, the future of our country, the future promise of the world, and who would be absent the government telling them to go shoot people as fast as they can. These young people could be best friends and working together and creating new products and new breakthroughs and new medical research. It's horrible. I can't wait for laws, for international laws, to outlaw all wars. It's horrendous. There's no winners in a war. Even the winners are stuck with thousands and tens of thousands, and even in cases, millions of maimed and crippled and loss of blood and treasure that you could do so many good things with. Medical research to cure cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer's, all the things that kill people. And we use those funds to find weapons that kill faster and create the headlines that we cry over, and the parents and the husbands and wives that are left behind and the kids that are left behind. It is so tragic. So since the news is so tragic, but that's what we deal with in our podcast, the news of the week, because the only news that makes it to the front pages is the more dramatic the event, the more horror, in a sense, the event, the more it's likely to make the front page. The good news, somebody gives $100 million to a university or to scholarships for medical researchers and for doctors. That doesn't make the headlines. It's not dramatic enough. It should, and it makes, gets onto often on page 30 or page 50, but it doesn't make the front pages of our newspapers or our channel, cable, our TV channels. If we look at all of those events and it reflects our values, it's a sad criticism about humanity and the progress of civilization. Because over the years, each time we develop something new, it kills more people faster, better. The sustainability of the human life on Earth is questionable because each time we come up with something more powerful and we think it won't be used, we developed the atom bomb, so Russia and the United States had it, so we avoided each of us using it against the other because they were worried about the mutual effect, mutual destruction. But now that more and more countries have it, and in the process, one evil lunatic could get a hold of it, and we don't know the kind of devastation it might delivered to humanity. Excuse me. Just talking about it makes me so sad and want to cry because what the United States dropped on Japan, all civilian, incidentally. There were no military um, establishments or institutions or camps or whatever in those places. It was all millions of innocent civilians were killed. And that was with the atom bomb that was available in 1944. And even then, the people that developed the atom bomb, that did the testing in Utah, I believe it was, or maybe Nevada, in the desert, were not sure what the ramification would be. They weren't sure that the fallout, the radiation, and whatnot wouldn't destroy the whole world. So they were dealing with something they didn't even know the amplification. And today, the ones that are now almost 100 years later, 90 years later, are far more powerful, and we certainly don't know what the ramifications would be in terms of the fallout and the radiation. And it's questionable whether human life could exist after such a similar attack with the new uh, atom bombs, or what else are they called? Not atom bombs.
Hydrogen bombs?
Hydrogen bombs, yes. Thank you, Leonard. And whatever you call them, they're
Like 100 times stronger.
Yeah. So we don't know. And somebody, for sure, based on the evolution of equipment, we went from being able to kill each other by being within a few feet of each other by throwing rocks or hitting each other with branches, with pieces of lumber from trees, to each time being able to reach farther and more devastatingly. So, and it's unceasing. It went to tanks and airplanes and and guns that could reach off for blocks, and we never stopped using them. So it's terribly. Excuse me 1 second. Let me clear my. Thank you. So by virtue of this delivery that we do at this podcast, I know that we're going to deliver tons of information that are designed to impress, to depress, to impart sadness, to if you're at all normal, the tragedies that you hear about, again repeated, that occur during the week, are if you're at all normal or have sensitivity about your fellow man, your own kids, your own neighbors, bound to depress you. So as a way to insulate you, and partially. And the reason I wrote the book that you see on your screen, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back, that collects all of the, so far as possible, of much of the genius ideas and constructive ideas by our most brilliant philosophers, thinkers, religious leaders, priests, rabbis, psychologists, what have you. And that's been my goal, to make for a happier world. So we have less disasters, less hurting of each other, more being nice to each other, being kindly, and enjoying the kindness that we express to others, that we demonstrate to others. There's nothing, no gift that I ever found more gratifying that I received in the process of doing a kindness than the thank you from some person that I helped cross the street that was maimed or blind or helpless, and said thank you with a big smile. And just giving other people a smile and make them feel a little better, or telling them something that'll make them laugh is so uplifting, and such a mitzvah, such a merit. You know, when you're at school and you do something good, your teacher gives you a gold star, a merit. So kindness is a reward for not only for the person that receives it, but a great reward for the person that gives it. If they give it with their full heart, and they see a smile come to the person's face, that you're perpetrating it for. I don't ever find anything more gratifying. So that's why I wrote this book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. 365 pages of the greatest thoughts on how to be happy. Not happy as we Americans often think of it, or maybe a majority of the people in the world think of it. When you take some drugs, or well, it's not going to call drugs, something like marijuana, or cocaine, or liquor, or have half a bottle of vodka, or 12 bottles of beer, and you're jumping up and down and smiling and laughing, sometimes crying, and that's not happiness. That lasts for a short while. It's a demonstration of what's supposed to come from experiencing happiness. But I'm talking more about the happiness of contentment, of being pleased with your life and your wife and your kids, and enjoying life that God gave you, that we were each rewarded with to come into this world. It says in the Old Testament that each of us is created in the image of God. We're so special. We should love ourselves and each other. It's very important to love yourself, to be happy. So this book teaches you how. It made a big difference in my life when I came across a book by a a very brilliant priest. Was he a bishop? I don't remember.
It's a minister.
Minister named Norman Vincent Peale, who led one of the top Catholic churches in the middle of Manhattan. It was called
Marble Collegiate Church.
Marble
was his
Collegiate Church. When I was a kid, we loved playing with marbles, so it made us happy. But anyway, he wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. He said, if you think positively, you have a good life, and positive things happen. It's self-fulfilling. So after I came across that book and Dale Carnegie's book, Dale Carnegie was a genius in human relations and human behavior, and he wrote a book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, and How to Win Friends and Influence People, that sold millions of copies. Till this day, it's a bestseller. So I wanted to share those ideas with you, that knowledge from the greatest philosopher, Plato and Aristotle, and the greatest teachers, and Freud, and whoever you think of as the most brilliant religious leaders, priests, bishops, cardinals, rabbis, popes, all, So this book took years and years to put together. So many years that my daughter had to get on it to help me finish it, because after 10 years I was still writing. It's 365 pages of such ideas and of humor and of things that are likely to make you feel good. And one page for every day of the year, 365 days. So before I start the program, launch the program that will give you the kind of depression that the news gives me, and it gives all sort of normal people, I want to give you one idea that will help you live a more content life, a more fulfilled life. Not the happiness that when you're drunk, you think you're happy, and the next day you're suffering, or right after that happiness passes and you're crying, or you're sick and throwing up and miserable. That's not happiness. I want you to learn to have the happiness that brings you contentment, brings you love, that you can convey to your wife, to your children, to all your loved ones, to your neighbors, to your friends, to your community, to your countrymen, to your fellow man throughout the world. So the fastest way to benefit from that is run out and get a copy of Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. The bottom of the page of the cover says how to be happy no matter what, even in the face of negative experiences, of failures, of disappointments, of even hurtful, real tragedies that we have to live through and overcome and move on in a positive way. So I tell you, about this book because ever since I wrote it and started to provide it to people, every book that was sold, I don't even take the proceeds to myself. I give it all to some worthwhile charitable effort. I I've received feedback from people who purchased it, people who received it as gifts. Voluntary, I don't ask for any feedback, but they tell me how much it's uplifted their life, how it's improved their life. It's made them happier. Didn't make them happy, but happier is content, more content. It led to contentment in their life for them and their loved ones and anybody that they cared for, and for the rest of humanity to the extent that they delivered these kindnesses. So get a copy of this book. I offered to, even though I gave away the proceeds, I offered anybody that didn't find it beneficial and useful and uplifting and something valuable. It won't be the most expensive or costly gift you ever get, but I promise you it will be one of the most precious, beneficial, and worthwhile and valuable gift that you can buy yourself or you can give somebody you care about. And I've offered for those that buy it or even get it as a gift, if they don't find it a real plus in their life, uplifting and enhancing their daily life and their full life and that of all the people around them, I will refund the purchase price. Not only that, I'll refund twice the purchase price if you just send me the purchase slip. Or even if you got it as a gift, if you get a copy of the purchase slip from the person that treated you to it, that gifted it to you, I will return the purchase price, twice the purchase price. So right away you should be happy. And even though I don't keep any of the money, I'm giving you back double of what I didn't receive. So I know it works because in all this time, I haven't got one taker of that good offer. On television, they tell you if you don't like some supplement or some drug that you bought, if you send us back the jar, you don't even have to send back the jar, send back your purchase slip, we will refund your purchase price. So you have a little at risk, and it's a nice offer. But I'm giving you a better offer. I will refund double your purchase price. So right away you should be happy. As long as you don't buy 50 books and get double your purchase price for 50 books or 100 books. And you can keep the book and benefit from it, even though you haven't paid for it. And you can, if you find it useful, you can use it. If you don't find it useful, I'd be very disappointed. But I'm telling you, as I said, it won't be the most expensive or costly book or costly gift you've ever gotten, but I'm positive it will be one of the most useful, beneficial, valuable, life uplifting present you ever bought yourself or you ever give anybody else. So without further ado, let me introduce one idea so you can deal with the negativity of the depression that we're going to be delivering with the news of the week as we discuss it. And that is, you're in charge. Don't live as if you exist. Don't make life just a matter of existence. You're the boss. Make it exciting. Make it worthwhile. Make it that you look forward every day. Have a dream that you want to fulfill. Have a goal. So you get up and look forward for the day with excitement. You know, people are bored with their life. People are get up each day, and it's like another day, another. Find something that you want to achieve that would excite you, something that you love, that you look forward each morning to get up and approach and deal with. Not something like I'd like to be a top musician, a singer. You got to have something that you love and that you can do within your talent, whatever limitations it has. But every one of us can have a dream to do something that excites them, that they love. So from this moment forward, think of something that you love and work your life around it each morning. When you get up, look forward to moving ahead on that achievement. And don't give up. Never give up. If it's a worthwhile objective, a worthwhile dream, you will fulfill it. Even what's his name, as I point out often, Edison. What was his first name?
Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison. Even Thomas Edison, when asked by a young man, asked Mr. Edison, how come you failed 1,000 times and you never gave up? He says, what? He said, who told you I failed 1,000 times? He says, oh, everybody knows. It's common knowledge. They always discuss that. You know, how determined you were, how insistent you were, how driven you were to develop this light bulb. He says, Thomas Edison said, young man, whoever told you that was wrong, because I never failed once. He says, what do you mean? It's a common knowledge. Everybody knows it. They talk about it all the time. He says, they're wrong. 1,000 times I succeeded in finding out what didn't work. So each time I got closer and closer to solving the puzzle that fulfilled my dream of creating this wonderful electric bulb for the humanity. So just remember that. As you work on the project that you dream about fulfilling, the process is so rewarding. Each day you get up, you're excited to face life, not just merely exist. So from now on, from this minute on, I want you to think of something you love, that's something you'd like to achieve, and it's within your capacity, not something impossible, like without, you want to be a great, I don't know, musician, songwriter, whatever. If that's not your expertise, not within your talent, don't strive for something that's impossible. But you'd be surprised about the number of things that you may love when you think about it and that you'd like to achieve that it's within your capacity, and that once you started working on it every single day, as you work on it, as you feel you're making a little progress, even as you fail, the progress or the thought of getting there as moving towards that goal will fulfill your life. So remember, do that. You're in charge. You're the master of your own destiny. You can't change the past. You can't change the future yet. By being positive, you can influence your future, but you may not even be alive. None of us knows if we're going to be alive in the future. So the past is history. The future is a mystery. All we have is the present. And that's why it's called the present, because it's a gift from God, from nature, that's given to us to use in a way that will make this world a better place, help make it a happier place, help you do more kindness, is that'll win you great gratification. Your attitude is everything. If you have the right attitude, positive thinking, positive things will happen. So address life with that attitude. Have a dream, and every day that you get up with excitement, looking forward to moving closer and closer to that dream, and realize that every failure is just one step closer to finding out what didn't work, and like Edison gets you finally to end the achievement that you're seeking. God bless you and good luck. And run out and get this book right away, because it's going to be the best investment you ever made in your life. I promise you. Or if it's not exactly what you were looking for, if you send it back, it'll still turn out to be a good investment, because you get double your money back. You can keep the book. God bless you. Good luck. And enjoy the books. And without further ado, if you launch on that way of life, I promise you, you're going to be more content, happier. Your life is going to be exciting and inspired, and not a bore, never a bore, as you're working on something that you love and excites you. Each day you get up, you'll even when you fail, you'll be a step closer to achieving your objective. Okay, so now without further ado, I want to introduce my partner in this podcast today, Len Carter, fabulous, fabulous human being, a genius. He graduated as an electrical engineer at the top of his class from one of the great Ivy League colleges in the United States, Cornell College, and then he went on to the best, maybe the best university in America and maybe in the world, Stanford, where all the geniuses that create the new products. It's in the center of Silicon Valley in San Francisco, and two young Jewish Russians, immigrants, developed while they were at school, Google. They became multi-billionaires. But so many great companies and products and breakthroughs came from that university. And Len graduated with a master's degree at the top of his class from Stanford, and then finally he graduated from Harvard Business School. at the top of his class, just as I did. So I'm delighted to have Len Carter here, offering his wisdom, his insights, his knowledge, and so without further ado, Len, would you start off?
Well,
Tell us.
as you would say, Morty, is there anything else you want to talk about, or are we done? So, I think so. Today I thought we would shift a little bit from world affairs and direct politics to some of the legislative or judicial rather things going on. The Supreme Court, has a year term, I think, not a term, but a session, and every June this time of year, they scramble to get rulings out so that they can go on summer vacation.
All right, what will we?
Okay, so we were talking about the Supreme Court taking scrambling to get all of the important decisions, rulings out to go out for summer recess. So a few days ago, they handed down 4 pretty interesting rulings relating to everything from injunctions to parental rights and some voting rights. So let's talk about some of these. The first one was something which the Trump administration heralded as a huge victory for them, which was the Supreme Court ended the practice of federal district judges issuing sweeping injunctions that cover the whole country and not just the specific party or jurisdiction that federal judge. So there's like 1,000 federal judges in the country, and if a case is brought, which happened, for example, to declare or to believe that the birthright citizenship should be on Trump's executive order, rather, denying birthright citizenship should be unconstitutional. So that was the case. A federal district judge agreed with that and said
that he could
not.
He could not.
Because under the 14th Amendment, it says people born in the country are citizens. So that one federal judge that handed down that decision on the executive order applies to the entire country.
Right.
And so the Trump administration appealed, I guess, and said, no, one federal judge can't issue a ruling that affects the entire country. And the Supreme Court agreed. So what that means is that the problem that it creates is that it kind of fragments the judicial system, because the ruling applies for that district, but what about all the other districts in the country? It doesn't. So does that mean you have to bring a case in those other districts? Or suppose does that mean if you're born in this district where the ruling was, you're a citizen, but if you're born in
the judge didn't deny it for all.
The judge did deny it for the entire country, but the Supreme Court said that a single judge can't do that. That they need to. It's only good for that jurisdiction. So, I mean, they said it can be broadened if it's through a class action and some other things, but the Trump administration immediately declared victory. This is great because it means that our executive orders are back in effect, and they are back into effect for every district except that one that the judge declared. So, you wonder, like, what's the impact? I mean, how smart a move was that? The Supreme Court was quick to point out that this isn't a ruling on birthright citizenship. Trump saw it as a ruling on birthright citizenship. It's not. It's just a ruling on whether or not federal district judges can give injunctions for the whole country. So what's probably going to now happen is the Supreme Court is going to have to accelerate the hearing this case, the birthright citizenship case, because right now it's fragmented.
To the audience, birthright citizen means if you're born in this country, even for an hour, your parents are not citizens or anything.
So
you're automatically
the 14th Amendment says that people born in the country and subject to the laws, and that's a little interesting nuance of language, but are U.S. citizens. So Trump says if you're born here, but your parents are undocumented, meaning they're not legally here, then you aren't either. So it's not to say that you can't become, that you aren't a citizen if you're born here, even if your parents were immigrants. But if they're legal, they have to be legal immigrants. So because what we saw, what has happened over the years is, there's this they call citizen tourism or birth, tourism, where pregnant women come and give birth, and so then could be. And so under the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, that child is a citizen, even though the mother is not. So the question is,
even though the mother may not be here legally.
Well, if she is here legally, then there's no problem. Even though she wasn't a citizen, she could be a permanent resident, or if she's here legally, then her child would be a citizen. But what Trump's saying is a lot of these people are here illegally. And if they're here illegally, then their children are not citizens. The 14th Amendment does not apply to children of illegal status parents. What do you think?
Well, I remember, I'm not old enough to remember the day, but I remember it was introduced after the Civil War, when slaves were freed.
Right.
And they wanted to make the slaves that were born here citizens.
Right.
It had nothing to do with all of the people. That was the intention.
Right.
And inadvertently, it said, by leaving it wide open, they said any baby born in the United States is automatically a citizen. I think that's uncalled for. I don't think it's realistic, because somebody could fly in with a visa, they're not here illegally, but they're going through the...
No, that would be legal.
I said, they're not doing, they're illegal.
But even Trump would say that child's a citizen.
Yeah, but I don't agree with that.
Oh, so you would even restrict it to...
Yeah, I don't...
They would have to be permanent residents here, meaning they're intended to be living here. They don't have to be a citizen, but they need a green card, say, to be legally a permanent resident, not just a tourist.
Not automatically. Because on that basis, then the parents could request to become citizens because their child is a citizen. I think it accelerates their chance to become a citizen.
It might, but so that's even strict. That's even a little more restrictive than just to deny it to people here.
I don't think
who are illegal.
That's my understanding of why it was introduced.
Yes, no, that's true. It was exactly right that it was relating to slaves.
And it was dealing with the guilt of.
And the slaves were already born here.
Yeah.
Yes. No, they weren't. It wasn't.
They wanted to make it up to the slaves.
Right. There wasn't an issue of undocumented migrants at the time. So now there's an issue, which now that's why there's courts to
In those
interpret
days, I
that.
don't think anybody was documented.
Right. I mean, no, I think probably. I mean, in the 18, there were immigration rules. They, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my feeling.
Yeah, no, I would. So we'll see how the court. But in terms of what this ruling with the court, I think it makes a mess because you've got different districts now with different things. So you got to fix it. You need one. That's what the Supreme Court law of the land is supposed to be. One rule for the whole country.
I think for citizen, it should be a national issue. You can't have one judge in the same state.
Right. Absolutely.
10 blocks away.
Different district would be a different decision, right? Which is why they have to deal with this quickly, because it's going to accelerate. Because ultimately, the 14th Amendment birthright citizenship issue is going to be determined at the Supreme Court. They need to do it quickly, because until they do it, it's a mess.
Have they indicated anything?
I don't think so. I don't know for sure. I don't believe so, because they haven't really taken up the case. There
haven't been any arguments.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Second thing that was also relating to parents. So the Supreme Court decided that parents can opt their children out of in this case, it was a Maryland public school system. They had lessons where they contained themes about homosexuality and transgenderism if the parents feel the content conflicts with their religious beliefs. So a big culture war issue, should parents have the right to decide what their kids learn and don't learn in public schools? Question, is this a good thing, or critics say that it will open the floodgates for students to opt out of a wider range of lessons. I don't like my kid learning about multiplication, so I'm going to opt out.
I would restrict it to...
Well, they're saying they can take it out if it conflicts with their religious beliefs. That's what the ruling is. So if you say parents have the right to pull their kid from a lesson on religious grounds, then who says it's religious grounds or not? If I don't want homosexuality taught to my kids, that's fine. But what about long division? Maybe my religion doesn't like long division.
I think it should be, parents should have the right to opt out of their kids,
right,
if they feel that it's inappropriate for the kids at that age.
So what about lessons like things that aren't necessarily transgender? Like I say, another lesson, social studies. We don't like our kids being taught about slavery. Can a parent opt the kid out of slavery class? See, it creates a slippery slope, because if you allow parents to opt out based on religious grounds, where does it end? I don't want my kid taught about slavery. I don't want my kid taught about long division. It just can keep going crazy.
I think there's a big difference. I don't want my kids at a too early age,
right,
to be dealing with a man could marry a man and
correct.
A woman could
but
marry.
What about slavery?
Slavery is not an issue today.
So then what? But the ruling says that parents can opt their kids out of
not of traditional.
So who determines what traditional stuff is?
It's like Hollywood.
Look, I don't.
They say or
I just
pornography. They couldn't define it.
Yeah,
they said when I see
I forgot the justice who said that. I can't. I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
I agree that parents should be able to opt their kids out of homosexuality and transgender at young ages. But I also see the slippery slope, because there may be some lessons that are less obvious a culture issue.
Slavery, you're just teaching history.
That's what you say.
Not relevant today.
That's what you
That's
say.
history.
But the parent who wants to opt out the child can say, no, it teaches that America's bad and it's against our religion.
There's nothing wrong with teaching that America's bad.
Well, that's what you say. But the Supreme Court ruling says that a parent can opt out on religious grounds, period. Doesn't say it doesn't say only transgenderism.
I don't think there's a religious grounds
that's what you
can't teach about slavery.
Well, that may be. That's why this might be eventually back into the court for some further clarification, because you can see how this can go crazy, as most legal things in our society can go crazy.
There was always a big thing about Jews having off for religious holidays or wearing a skull cap or something.
So here's an easy one. I think we'll both agree on this. The Supreme Court allowed Texas, the state of Texas, to require age verification for users of pornographic websites. So the argument is you need to verify if someone's logging on to a porn site that this person is actually not a child. I guess other states don't have that requirement.
The only way when I go on, it asks, are you over?
So you've heard.
I've seen it.
That's what you're told.
No.
When you actually do it.
No, when I go onto a website, it says, are you over 18?
Right.
If you lie, they don't.
But I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know. You
don't have to bring a birth certificate.
I don't know how they verify.
I'm telling you.
No, but that's New York. I don't know if New York requires the verification. Texas actually now will require that.
That what?
That it's verification. I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying, but I don't know if
you can't even verify.
Maybe you have to upload
whether you're a boy or a girl.
What happens if what would happen if the verification requires uploading a driver's license? Would you agree with that? To verify your age. Same way you have to verify your age when you buy alcohol.
Okay.
Right? How do you verify your age when you go to the liquor store? So you show them ID.
Yeah. You have to do. Yeah. You have to bring some proof that you're over 18.
So I don't have a problem with that. I mean, same way you have to be in New York, you have to be 21 to buy marijuana. You have to be 21 to buy alcohol. You have to be 21 to do a lot of things. So critics say, well, it's regulating free speech, but the fourth ruling relates to race and minorities. So here the Supreme Court, now it just punted the case. It's a Louisiana case. They just punted it to the next session. So they really didn't answer it. But the question relates to gerrymandering. And in Louisiana, apparently there's, as a result of the gerrymandering, there has been one black district or one black majority black district who elected a black representative, and because of how the other districts were configured, they were majority white. So even though the percent of blacks in Louisiana is not the same percentage of the representation in the Congress. So, and that's because of the gerrymandering. So it's interesting because
I don't think it's only in Louisiana.
That's what the case is. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Absolutely correct. Yes. But the case cited the Voting Rights Act. So the Voting Rights Act says that states are not allowed to dilute the power of minority voters such as by gerrymandering. They're not allowed to do that. So let's say if Louisiana is half black, how come they only have one representative, right? That's a little, that looks like it may violate the Voting Rights Act, because why wouldn't you, if Louisiana is half black, why wouldn't half the representatives be black? Because if you gerrymander it, you can create all white or majority white districts so that you can avoid that from happening. So on one hand, you have the Voting Rights Act that says you're not allowed to do that. On the other hand, you have the 14th Amendment that says, it's the Equal Protection Clause, that says that you're not allowed to do stuff predominantly based on race. So wouldn't setting districts a different way be doing it because of race? Right? Because what they're saying is these districts are not properly drawn. You have to redraw them. But isn't redrawing them a violation of the 14th Amendment? Because why are you redrawing them? How are you redrawing them? Based on race, right? But according to equal protection, you're not allowed to do stuff like that based on race. Tough question. That's why I could see why they punted it, because they didn't want to deal with it. We'll see how they deal with it.
A lot of states have that problem.
Right, they do.
Regularly.
They do. And that's why this is an important precedent case. Because if the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that, then the states are going to have to they're not going to be able to gerrymander the districts the same way they've been doing. It's a tough one. Very tough. Glad I'm not a judge. Anyway, that's about all the time we have, but we can continue our discussion next time around.
It's a race to the bottom.
Yes, a race to the bottom. I'm sure there'll be plenty of depressing headlines between now and next Wednesday.
There's never been. It's like somebody once wrote, "What if nothing happened?
Yeah.
What would the newspapers write?
Yeah.
Or what if we went to a war and nobody showed up?"
Not going to happen.
You never have to worry about that. There's always enough countries that want to be involved in a war.
That's right. That's right. So thank
you.
Especially
the United States.
All right. Thank you for an interesting discussion.
Any war that we've been involved in the United States since the end of the Second World War, that was a result of, one of the reasons they take issue with the immigrants coming in, as they call it, the enemies, alien enemies. That it's an invasion.
Invasion, right.
Does an invasion have to be 1,000 people?
Right.
Or one at a time? That adds up to 1,000
does it have to be
people.
An army even?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the administration saying it's an invasion because they keep coming in. And is it become an invasion when it's 100 people or 1,000 people? And they say that's not a war. The Democrats are consistently taking issue with that, and it's hard to say it is a war because it's not a war.
Right.
Nobody declares it as a war.
Right.
But Trump is declaring it as a war.
Right.
You're doing an invasion. Especially if you're sending.
Well, it's the basis for, exerting certain powers, whatever those to deploy troops or to redirect funds or to do.
But he says they could do it legally under the enemies.
Right.
And enemy
right.
aliens.
Invasion. Right. But you have to first say it's an invasion before you invoke the law.
It always becomes. The law is a crazy thing because it always becomes a matter of interpretation that's subject to different interpretations. And whatever interpretation the Supreme Court or local judges come up with, there's arguments on both sides.
Yep, always is.
It's not black and white.
Yep.
Unless it's racist. Then it's black and white.
All right. Thank you for having us.
God bless you all. Have a great week. I love you all. Be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. And treat your life with joy and with purpose. So you're excited every day that you get up that you're not just getting up to exist, that you're going to use your energy and your wisdom and whatever gifts you've been given, whatever talent you've been given, to make yourself better so that you love yourself, not for the benefit of others. In the process, if you do that, you'll benefit all of your society. So God bless you. Be happy. And if you're not going to be happy, I'm going to come around.
Make you happy.
Yeah, I'll hit you over the head with my book with all 365 pages. God bless you. I love you. Have a wonderful every day of your life. Bye.